I was born in Waltham. I lived there till I was like 6 or 7. Then I moved to Milford. I've been in Milford ever since. So I've been out here for a while.
Cool. Who's Puerto Rican in your family?
My dad was born there, and my mom's wasn't born there, but she's Puerto Rican. So both my parents are Puerto Rican.
Cool. How long has it been since you last visited?
Last time I went was 2012. That was the last time.
Yeah, you still have family?
Yeah, it's been a while. I've only been a couple times, but yeah, I have a lot of family out there, so I gotta get back.
Yeah. Have you been in summer? Or well, it's always summer. But but have you been like in the months of summer, June, July, August?
Yeah, the nice beaches over there. The last time I actually went for a wrestling tournament that was going on in San Juan.
Really?
Yeah, and I competed in the tournament, and then we were there for the rest of the weekend. So we just like went to the beaches. We went to Old San Juan. It was a good time. That was so much fun.
Yeah, Old San Juan is super nice. I guess a lot of tourists for sure. How did your combat journey start? Were you a wrestler when you were a kid? How did this come about?
Yeah, so I started wrestling when I was probably like 12. Just as a kid, I started wrestling, and then after high school, after I got done, I didn't go to college. So that was when I met Jorge Rivera, and then he was my coach, and he got me into it. And I took my first fight after 3 months.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I've been doing it ever since.
So you know Jorge also. I had Jose El Salvaje
I was just looking through iTunes on your profile. Yeah, Jose, that's my brother. I've come up with him for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, he was telling me about Jorge too, and that Jorge apparently is made out of wood.
Oh, God, I know. Yeah, that guy, he's nuts, man. But yeah, it was great having him as a coach, though, just because just having a guy who's been there,
Yeah, for sure. One of the representatives in the main stage.
Yes.
For a long time too. He fought some killers over there.
He's an OG too. Like he was there for years. You know what I'm saying? He was in there way back.
Yeah. So, what was besides you starting wrestling when you were a kid? What was your first exposure to combat sports as a kid that you remember?
Definitely being Puerto Rican. Definitely watching boxing. Obviously, because you know how it is, like family get-togethers, and then if there's like a Tito fight on or a Cotto fight, So that was a very early exposure, was like seeing the boxing, and then just growing up, I did a little bit of karate here and there, but it wasn't really until wrestling where this was really like started to be, this was what I wanted to do in my life, and then as I got older, I got more interested in doing MMA. And, in the back of my mind, like I was always passionate about wrestling, but in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a fighter. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
What I really wanted to do was fight. So, I turned pro when I was 23 and, 3 years as a pro and still working at it.
Good. You're 7-1, correct?
7-1. Yep.
Yeah. One of the first fights I caught, and the one that caught my attention the most was the Miguel Restrepo fight.
Restrepo, yeah. Everyone brings that one up. That was a good one.
Ooh, brother. It was a great fight for sure. You pulled it off at the end with your naked choke.
Yeah, and a lot of that fight too was like I kind of underestimated him. I kind of went into that fight kind of cocky, but he put it on me. He was a lot better than I thought. So it just, I thought I was going to take him out in the first round, and then by the second round, he caught me with some good punches, and he had me hurt.
Yeah,
really hurt, and like I just had to work through it. But I actually broke his nose off my knee, if you saw. So that last sequence where I grabbed him, I kneed him in the face, I broke his nose, and then he kind of winced as he walked away from me, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, I know, I got you.
I got you hurt now."
That's when I took him down, and I ended up getting the choke. But yeah, no, that fight, everyone brings that fight up because that fight was crazy. Everybody knows.
It's crazy to see how it brings a smile to your face.
Oh yeah, man, I love that. Some people are like, they want to fight and they just, they want to go in and they want to win and they don't want. I want to be in those big fights. That's what I live for. Like if I can be in a good brawl that's entertaining and everybody talks about it afterwards. Like you just brought it up, like being like the best fight you saw me in, and it's like people still talk about that fight, and like that's why I do this. You know what I'm saying? I put on the fights that are memorable that people want to keep talking about, and they keep asking me about it. And you know that's what I live for. I'm a fighter. I'm not just like. I don't want to just like take easy fights and do this and do that, and I'm scared to lose and this and that, or I'm scared to get hit. Nah, man, I'm a fighter through and through. I want to fight, man. If you're gonna beat me, beat me. All right, you know. So yeah.
Are you looking to stay at 125? How is the cut to 125 for you? Is it okay?
Awful. I'm probably not gonna fight at 25 anymore. Honestly, my next fight I've been trying to get at 35. It's just over time, like the cut it's gotten too hard. You know, being a wrestler, I've been cutting weight, and I've been cutting weight since I was like 15, 16 years old. And as I got older, the cut just kept getting harder and harder. I'm 26 now. So my last fight was at 125 back in November, and it's always been hard, but this one was like especially where it was like I really hit a wall. And, you know, I came in the day of the weigh-ins, I was like 129. And I remember just sitting in the sauna for like 45 minutes and I didn't sweat at all. Like I didn't sweat. And then I was trying to sweat and I was like, all right, that's not working. So I went to the hot tub for another half hour and it was just like nothing. And then by the time I got to weigh-ins, I had only lost like 2 pounds. So I ended up weighing in at 128, so I missed weight, and I had to give the guy $200. You know what I'm saying? And it was the worst. It was the worst I ever felt. And you know, the cut has always been hard, but that one really showed me like, wow, like this might be like too much. If I try to do this again, this is not gonna be good for my body. It's not gonna be good for my long-term health. So. You know, I think moving up to 135 is you know, it's probably the smartest thing for me to do, especially, you know, I'm 26 now, you know, I'm getting older. I'm just, you know, it's doing that weight cut. I'm not 16 anymore where I can drop 10 pounds in one day and be fine the next day. You know what I'm saying? Like it really takes a toll on me. So yeah, so moving up to 35, you know, and I don't feel small, you know, I've always been like a big 25er. That's kind of like, you know, I'm a lot bigger than most of the guys I fight because I've been able to make the weight, but now it's gotten to the point where, all right, I'm a little too big now. So I don't feel small at 35, so I think I'll be good. And on top of that, man, I'm training with the best 35s around, man. I train with Rob Font. I train with Randy Costa. I've trained with Savages. So 135 sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it will be a healthier weight for you. I think you'll look way better. We just saw it in the main stage Saturday with Pettis.
Anthony Pettis knocking him out. My God, that was him. You know, years of him. You know, cutting the weight to make 55, and then he takes that stress off of him, and there you go. He knocks out Wonder Boy like that.
Yeah, and he went to 45, which, man, I don't know whose idea was that.
Ugh, that was too much. I mean, you saw when he fought Max Holloway, he got murked. He didn't look like himself, you know what I'm saying? Like he really drained himself to make that weight. And you know, I've always kind of been one of those people too where it's like, oh, like I can make the weight, I'll be fine, yada yada, but like you don't realize, you know what, it really is taking a lot out of you. So sometimes it's not worth it.
No, I had Dr. Yared Vasquez, the Octagon doctor. I don't know if you've met him, but he's Puerto Rican too. He's all MMA. He's always, well, pretty much all combat sports. He's really following them. And we spoke about a lot of things, but one of the most important things we talked about and the longest it was weight cuts in all fighting. MMA specifically, because we see that that's one of the bigger problems in MMA. Maybe we saw it with Hanan Barao a couple of years ago. A lot of guys have gone into a lot of trouble because of their weight, and they don't perform to their fullest, or they really, really damage their bodies. Right. Especially guys like you that came up as wrestlers, because you guys start cutting weight at an early age, like you said.
age, yeah.
And that's funky when you get to 30, 31, 32.
Right. That's the thing is like we start at a young age, so we have it in our mind like, all right, I've done it a million times, but then at that, there's gonna be that one time where you hit the wall and you realize, and that's kind of what happened to me in my last fight.
Yeah. So you're 7-1. Do you have is your next fight is it scheduled already?
I was actually supposed to fight on the Connecticut CES card this Friday, but that fell through, so that wasn't gonna happen. So we're looking at May 31st, the next CES card. So that should be the next one. So I'm signed exclusively to CES MMA. It's one of the top organizations in New England. I've been with them since my pro debut, and I fought last November. I opted to skip out on the January card. And we were talking about me getting on the March card. We had a couple opportunities, nothing that came to fruition. So I ended up just sitting this one out, and we'll get them back in May. So we'll see. And I'm sitting pretty at 7-1 right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not in too big of a rush. Past couple of years, I've been fighting nonstop. Getting to that, getting to 6-0. I was fighting nonstop, you know what I mean? So I got to 6-0 fairly quickly. So, I lost my first fight, and then, coming back and winning the 7th win, and I'm kind of okay just kind of, taking my time at this point. I'm at a good spot where I am.
Yeah, definitely. Are you looking to fight maybe 2 times a year, 3 times a year, or what are you looking to do?
Yeah, 2 or 3 times a year. I'd like to fight, I wanted to fight on this March card. If it doesn't happen, that's fine. I'll fight the May card, and then try to fight maybe August, maybe November. 3 times sounds about right. Yeah, 3 times will be good.
Yeah, 3 times makes sense.
That'll bring me to 10-1 by the end of the year, so there you go.
Yeah. How far do you think you are from the 135 championship?
I don't know, man. Right now, that guy for Tony Gravely, he's the champ right now for CES, and that I don't know if you've seen him fight, but that kid's a savage. I could get a shot at fighting him maybe by the end of the year. I don't know. I'm pretty new to this weight class. Moving up now, so I'd like to get a couple wins before I challenge him. I'm not gonna I'm not trying to make any mistakes about who he is. I know he's a savage. I become correct if I'm going to challenge him. So, I'd like to get a win or 2 before I challenge him for that belt. And you know what? He's kind of on the cusp of, being signed to the big show. So, who knows? Maybe by the end of the year, the belt could be vacant and I could be fighting somebody else. So, I'm not too worried about the belt right now. I'm just trying to, take it win by win. My next fight, whoever it is, I'm gonna go in and try to finish it in the first round like I always do. You know what I'm saying? I'm 7-1. I'm 7-1 with 7 finishes. So I've never gone the distance. So that's what I plan on continuing doing. And I don't, it might be Tony Gravely. I might be challenging for that belt. I don't know yet. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. It's I don't think you're too far away from that. Let's see what happens. Seeing that you're one of the lower weight class guys, you're 135 now, the landscape of the smaller weight classes, it's not as it used to be before, that there weren't a lot of options for you guys. I know you're signed exclusively to CES, which is an awesome company, and it develops talent in an incredible way. We've seen a lot of big talents come from CES, for sure, but wow. There's a lot of options for smaller guys, for sure. One championship, Bellator, Combate Americas, and the UFC still believes in 135. Even though they were saying something about the 125ers.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to, I don't know, they're still putting on 125 fights. They're still signing guys, so I don't know. They were talking about getting rid of it, but it looks like they might just keep it. But I don't know.
Yeah, being a guy on a smaller weight class, how do you feel with all these options that are out there, and for not necessarily for you, but for 135 in general?
Man, it's great, man. We're in like this golden age of MMA right now. Like, it's so big, and there's so many opportunities. Like you said, like ONE FC, Bellator's out there. There's good promotions out in Canada. It's all over the place. So, the UFC is the goal, for sure. But I think there's so many, even the PFL.
Yes.
There's so many opportunities out there that, just because you don't make the UFC doesn't necessarily mean you can't make a living at doing this. There's definitely some opportunities to make some money. Whether it be Bellator, whether it be PFL or ONE FC. There's definitely a lot of opportunities, and it's an exciting time. But yeah, that being said, right now the focus is staying with CES. They treat me very well. I'm kind of like I'm one of their guys. And they're trying to build me up, and they wanna send me to the UFC. That's their goal. So as of right now, I'm sitting pretty with them, and if I make the UFC, awesome. If not, then we'll explore our options, see if we can get them in PFL, see if we can get them Bellator, see what happens.
Yeah, you're a young guy. You're 26, correct? So you're sitting well. It doesn't, you're all right.
I'm in the, what I'm saying? Good things come to those who wait.
True. Being a guy that has 7 finishes in his career, 7 wins, 7 finishes, you have done a great job in not letting any of your fights go to a decision. But that doesn't mean that the judging in MMA isn't a problem right now.
Oh.
It's still one of the biggest problems. I always try to ask fighters, how would you fix this if it was in your hands? 2 options. Would you recruit old coaches and retired fighters and make them judges all over the country, or have the actual judges that are sitting right now in every commission and train them in a couple of martial arts, let's say BJJ, wrestling, and some striking, Muay Thai or kickboxing. Train them in a little bit basic knowledge of these martial arts.
It's the whole judging issue. It's tough, man. It's because I think the biggest thing is the training. These people need to be educated. Not only on it's not just taking a random person and being like, okay, well, this is MMA, this is what we're looking at. You kind of need that field experience. If you haven't trained on a mat, if you haven't done jiu-jitsu, or if you haven't, you've never thrown a punch in your life, I mean, it's hard to expect someone to know what's going on. Me being, I do, as well as fighting, I'm actually a commentator for Cage Titans, and I work with Cage Titans, behind the scenes. So I see a lot of this stuff. I do deal with the commission. So, I mean, I've heard some horror stories, man. I've heard people sitting ringside next to a judge. I remember this one fighter told me he was sitting next to a judge, and the fighter had another fighter in like an armbar, the most basic thing.
Right.
The judge turned over to him and said, "What's he have him in? What is?" An armbar, the most basic thing in the world. My mom knows an armbar. Come on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but on the other side, it's tough, man, because the commission, man, they're pretty short on people. They don't have the people. So you could say, coaches got to sign up, former fighters got to sign up, but you gotta get those people to do that. They need to, put their money where their mouth is, and they need to actually sign the papers and get in there, take the proper steps to get in the commission. The commission, they're doing the best they can with what they have. They need people to sign up. They need experienced people to sign up and do it. I mean, it's not hard. Literally just all you have to do is sign up and you can get your license to do it. They have their courses, judging courses, refereeing courses, but the people need to get out there and sign up. If you think you can do a better job judging, you should, try, contact your local commission, try and get in there, get in there. We need better judging, we need better refereeing. We're in a decent spot from where we used to be, but we're not where we need to be. There's a lot of improvement to be made, and it comes down to people, volunteering and saying, okay, yeah, I'm down to do this. So,
yeah, it is. It's easier to complain about it.
Right. It's easier said than done. You know what I'm saying? People want to say like, oh, well, why don't they use former fighters, former coaches? Well, why don't those people, okay, are you going to get those people to sign up? Like, you gotta, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not an easy thing, for sure. But refs also, which is another issue. We have a lot of refs that maybe are accustomed to another background, maybe just straight boxing or straight kickboxing, and then they get licensed as MMA refs, or the commission just licenses them as MMA refs. As a wrestler, as a guy that his base is wrestling, do you feel that the crop of refs that are coming up right now are better educated as to not standing fighters up as quick, not asking them to work when they're evidently working for a better position? How do you feel about that?
I'll start off by saying I'm for stand-ups. I like stand-ups. If nothing's going on, you got to keep the action going. It can't be too overboard, though. You know what I'm saying? We saw that recently. I forget what fight it was, but there was a fight recently where I think it was Mark Goddard, and he kept asking them to work, and he was like, "Come on, you guys got to work. You guys got to work," and then he would just stand them up. Like, that's a little too quick. That's a little extreme, but if a guy's sitting in open guard and nobody's working, I mean, you gotta keep the action moving. That being said, as far as refs, understanding, what to do with stand-ups, my biggest experience, like I said, I work with Cage Titans. My biggest experience has been with the Massachusetts Athletic Commission. For the most part, I think the stand-ups are a little underutilized, but for the most part, they're pretty fair about it. We have a decent amount of refs who, kind of know what they're doing. Some of them not so much, but for the most part, I do see the refs making pretty fair judgments on when to stand people up. I personally would like to see it a little more, not so much to an extreme, but I think at the end of the day, the crowd is there to see a show. You got to keep the action moving. I understand that people want to say like, oh well, if you're doing jiu-jitsu and you're on bottom and you need more than 5 minutes to work that, it's like, well, yeah, but that's not very pleasing to the fans. It's not very pleasing to the product that you're trying to put out there. It's supposed to be action. So I understand where refs do want to keep the action moving, but again, it comes down to education. Everybody needs to put in their mat time, including the refs. They need to put in their mat time. They need to understand what's going on in there.
I agree. 100%. It takes away sometimes from a fight, but it has gotten better, right, for sure. Maybe crowd pressure and all that gets to a ref.
That's a big one. Where if a ref feels pressured to do something, what I'm saying? I've seen that in the past. Like you see a guy get a TKO where he not necessarily should have, just because of the fact that he was like, "Oh, I'm hitting him. You're gonna stop this fight. You're gonna stop this fight," and then they stop it. And it's like, well, was that guy really that hurt? I don't know. I mean, maybe not, but it didn't really look like it. But it looked like you kind of swayed him into stopping that fight. I'm not a fan of that either.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of those, but we've also seen it on the other end where it's stopped too late too.
Oh yeah,
which is sad. But the example that I always use is, I forget the ref, but it was Pat Barry against Czech Congo, and in the UFC, and Pat Barry had Czech Congo on Queer Street. Oh. He was on wobbly legs, and then eventually Czech Congo came back with a hard right and just knocked him out.
Right. And see, the thing about that is, if you watch that, Czech Congo never stopped moving.
Exactly.
I think the referee made the right decision because, yeah, he was definitely hurt, but he was always trying to get back to his feet. He was always trying to get back to a better position. So, I mean, and I think on the other extreme, do you remember the Pat Curran Joe Warren fight?
I do, but glimpses.
That was the worst late stoppage I've ever seen in my life. And that was a guy who was literally out on his feet, just taking punches to the head. And the referee was like, "Oh, well, he didn't go down yet, so I didn't stop him." It doesn't matter. Even if he doesn't go down, you can tell when a guy's out on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
If he's doing this,
he's out.
He's out. He's done. He might be standing, but that's right here. That's not here. This is done. This is all it's working.
True. We used to see a lot of that in old boxing, 70s and 80s. A guy would just be like on the ropes, just getting hammered and almost falling, but wouldn't fall yet. So the ref would just stand there until he fell.
Right. Right.
Yeah, crazy. How long have you been with commentating with Cage Titans? Correct.
Ooh, almost 3 years now. Um, been doing it for a while, man. I love working with Mike Polvere. He's the president of the Cage Titans. He gave me the opportunity to step in, and ever since I started commentating with him, I've also been helping him with a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Whether it be promotion, a little bit of matchmaking here and here. I've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes for Cage Titans, and it's so great because I'm a fighter first, obviously, but like I'm a fight fan. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a fan of fights. I love fights. So if I can get the opportunity to sit ringside and just chill and talk about fights for all night, man, it's so much fun to me. And the fact that I get a paycheck at the end of the night is pretty dope too. So I love doing it. It's great.
Is this something that you see yourself doing even after you're done?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, even when I'm done fighting, I'm always going to be involved in the sport one way or another. You know what I'm saying? I'm through and through. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been involved with this stuff. So, if whether it be, commentating, which I would love to keep doing, or even matchmaking or, get into my promotion, I would love to, in any way, shape, or form, I want to be involved in the sport.
Yeah, for sure. Let's touch on a subject. Are you good on time?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, cool. This is a subject that I've been talking with some of my buddies that like combat sports, and it has to do a lot with bullying in schools, elementary and middle, and eventually high school, which is a little funkier. High school is a little different, but when they're smaller, elementary and middle school, do you feel besides wrestling, which seems to be the go-to combat discipline school-wise? Do you feel schools should implement some sort of extracurricular combat activity, maybe self-defense activity for every type of kid, every grade, that would make kids feel a little bit more confident? Maybe kids aren't being bullied yet, but they see it happening. Yeah. What would you do?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think, sports is always great, getting kids involved in sports. But, especially wrestling, growing up, I was too small to play football. I wasn't great at baseball. I wasn't too small to play basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like wrestling was my only option, man. I grew up, I was a little kid, and in 5th grade, I was like 65 pounds. And, I got involved in wrestling, and it was just something that I loved. And it was the type of thing where everybody could be included because it didn't matter, who you were, how big you were, everybody got a shot. Everybody got to play. You don't play wrestling, of course, but, everybody got to play. So wrestling, and it gave me a lot of confidence growing up. So it's definitely something that I would urge parents to put their kids in. As far as schools, actually, my high school, I was fortunate enough, my high school actually did have a self-defense program. It was like an after-school program that one of the teachers, one of the history teachers he was a Gracie purple belt under Carlos Tahina, friend of mine, Justin Santamano. He's a black belt now, actually. But at the time, he was training in JiuJitsu, but he was also skilled in like Jeet Kune Do and Kali stick fighting, stuff like that, and he kind of ran this after school program where he would teach a lot of people, self-defense. And, I used to see, because they would use the wrestling room after the wrestling team. So I would stick around and watch them work. And it was cool, because there was a lot of kids in there that, maybe didn't participate in sports, but, they were kind of interested in doing something. So, it was cool to see these other kids, get involved in doing something, that could give them that confidence and give them something to do after school, So yeah, it would be great, if more schools, got involved in something like that. Like I said, not every kid is interested in sports, so give them more options. I think self-defense program is a great one,
Yeah, for sure. Maybe not besides wrestling, that seems to be the go-to discipline, but maybe a little bit of Muay Thai, maybe a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu. Like, you were very fortunate because that doesn't happen ever.
I know, and yeah, it was great because he it was funny because me being on the wrestling team, some of the guys on the wrestling teams would kind of, they'd be like, oh, what is this, like a self-defense program? Like that seems dumb. But then I got to know Mr. Santamena, and then I learned that he's a purple belt and that he trains under a Gracie black belt and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. This guy's legit. This is real, and then I got a little bit involved in it too. So,
So was that in high school? High school?
That was in high school, yeah.
So that was like a little bit over 10 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
So
yeah.
you already knew who the Gracies were.
Oh, of course. I've known who the Gracies were since I was a little kid. I started watching the UFC. The first UFC me and my dad sat down and ordered was Gracie versus Matt Hughes. I don't know if you remember that one.
Wow.
That was like, I want to say UFC 59, something like that. That was way back. But that was the first one we ordered. And I remember watching Horace Gracie get destroyed and being heartbroken because he was one of my heroes. But, Matt Hughes being a wrestler, I love Matt Hughes. That was the thing. I loved Matt Hughes too because, I was a wrestler, so I loved the wrestlers. So that was one of those fights.
Yeah, that event marked, I think it marked, it's like closing a chapter in what MMA was before that.
That's a good way of putting it. It really is because, you see the first generation with Hoist. Excuse me. You see the first generation with Hoist, who was kind of like, that time where everybody was kind of one-dimensional, and then you see Matt Hughes, who was, he was based off of wrestling, but he was a submission grappler. He had pretty good boxing. He was a much more complete martial artist. So yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That was like a benchmark right there, where it was kind of like old school versus new school.
Yeah, it for sure. There's a couple of those in the MMA timeline for sure. There's that. Then there's George finally beating him.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sport is beautiful. I don't know why it isn't bigger than what it is, but it is getting bigger for sure. For sure. Hey man, do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, my next fight, hopefully May 31st, CES MMA. You can follow me on Instagram, Ricardo Miguel 1010. You can follow me on Facebook. My name, Richard Santiago. My sponsor, as always, Jeff Gates Construction. Cage Titans, our next show is April 6th. Definitely check that out. We're on Flow Combat. We're out in Plymouth Memorial Hall if you're in Massachusetts. And yeah, thank you for the time. I had a lot of fun. For sure. We'll do this again.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's do it again. All right, cool. All right. Thank you.